3 tips for user surveys. Last week, a really good friend of mine who works in the founder's office of a logistics startup reached out to me, and she shared a survey and she wanted feedback on the survey. So this is a survey that she was planning to send out to some of their customers to explore possibilities in the fintech space within logistics. I had a look at the survey and I had 2 tips for her. The first tip was to keep the survey short and simple. KISS. Your respondents or your customers are not as passionate about your solution as you and your team are, and they will not also be as knowledgeable about the solution space as as you and your team. Now, they will be very knowledgeable about the problem space, and that's what you want to probe them on. So in your survey questions, you want to avoid jargon, you want to avoid abbreviations that only you and your team are aware of. So keep it short, keep it simple, and if you can avoid a question and it's not adding value to what you're thinking, avoid the question. The second tip I had for her was to avoid open-ended questions. So when you put forth an open-ended question, the participant really has to come up with they have to really think and come up with the responses. So for example, instead of asking the participant or the respondent to list out the most frustrating aspects about the current solution, what you want to do is list out, let's say, 5 of the potentially frustrating aspects about the current solution and ask them to pick the most critical one, or ask them to rank them from 1 to 3 and pick the top 3 and rank them. In which case, the load on the participant is a lot less. They don't have to come up with those frustration aspects. They just have to pick the top 3. I've done a lot of workshops on user research, and typically the participants have a hard time understanding why you shouldn't ask open-ended questions. So what I normally do is I give them a sample survey, and I ask the participants to take the survey, and I ask them to observe their own behavior. And for most open-ended questions, participants just click next without even reading the question. And whenever I've had to take surveys in the past, and if there is a mandatory open-ended questions, I just put NA and move on to the next question. Now, when I told this to my friend, her question was, if you don't ask this question in the survey, how do you find out what are the things that you want to list in that frustration question? And my response to her was to ask that open-ended question in a user interview. So user interviews is something that we will look at in more detail in next week's video. Bonus tip: pilot before you blast. So if you're planning to send out the survey to, let's say, 100 participants, you ideally want to pilot that survey with 3 or 4 people and make sure that these 3 or 4 people are able to complete the survey, and the kind of responses you're getting is in line with what you were sort of expecting, that you're not getting any major surprises. Because once you send it to 100 people and you realize that there is a fundamental issue with the survey design, it's too late. You can't correct it. You can't, it's very difficult to be able to send it to them again. Now, when my friend sent me the survey for feedback, essentially she was piloting it, so I didn't give her that as a tip. If you're facing challenges getting quality insights from your user surveys, do give me a shout and I would love to have a conversation. Thank you for watching and have a good one.